least of his firstborn, somewhat more than might be expected by another father. Judith Eisenstein recalls the educational content of her tender years. By the time I was 9, I had had Hebrew lessons. I had 2 years of music in the Children's Centers at the Institute of Musical Art. I had 2 years of private French lessons with a Frenchwoman who never uttered a word in English. I was in the 6th year of public school, having skipped a number of grades, thus never learned the long division, nor did it so. I had a first-hand acquaintance with some of the music of the greatest composers, and had a large repertoire of synagogue and early Zionist songs. All of this may be very different from practically anyone I know. Judith Kaplan's father, it appears, had just great expectations for his eldest daughter that, Henry Higgins-like, he made her his personal crucible for testing his ideas about education and women, as later the SAJ would be the laboratory for communal experimentation.
Okay, so that's actually, in the next little section he does talk a little bit more about, so when she enters adolescence and she starts to, rebel, it really is distressing to him because he's, this is the person that he is grooming to be, to be his greatest disciple.
It's just very interesting. It parallels Freud very much.
That is
Anna.
Oh, right. So that's interesting.
And
so just a couple of sentences beyond where Kaplan records touching.
Kaplan records a touching and revealing family story that occurred shortly after Judith's bar mitzvah. It is a long entry, but one of interest here because it reveals his authoritarianism, but also his fatherly hypersensitivity. This has been one of the unhappiest weeks of my life. It began with Lena showing me what my Judith thinks of me whenever I find it necessary to insist upon her realizing that she is, after all, my child, and that she still owes me a certain degree of filial obedience. God knows I do my utmost to develop in her a sense of self-reliance, but until I can be certain that she has the necessary reasonableness and self-control to make self-reliance safe, I deem it my duty to exercise guardianship. She is only 13 at present, yet when upon a single occasion I crossed her will, she became so overwrought that she charged me in her diary with being a despot. How did he know that?
Very good.
There are a number of irrelevant charges she brings against me in what she says there, which fact leads me to believe that I am bound to be disappointed if I look forward to having in her an intellectual companion. She does not seem to have the love for me that my other little ones have. If I do not engage her in conversation, she's apt to ignore me for weeks as though I did not exist. There are probably explanations for all this coldness. We may find in the books on adolescence. Nevertheless, the experience of it hurts me to the core.
Okay. So, again, just so many different dimensions to his relationship to different women and girls in his life, and all the he was a human being very much in process, and so and a father, yes, very much.
Normal father and daughter.
Yeah, right. So okay, Ami, we're just going to drop to the bottom of 353. There were many anomalies.
Good. There were many anomalies in Mordechai Kaplan's life and thought. Though he early espoused the cause of feminism in his theory and practice, he chose a wife that no intellectual would serve his personal needs, and what he did not expect or want from his wife, he yearned for from his daughter. Though he educated his daughter according to modern ideas about the equality of men and women, he was old-fashioned with regard to the relationship of parents to children. Finally, his total commitment to the primacy of the group left shortcomings in his ability to understand and respond to the needs of the individual. This, despite his many words on the subject of himself, nonetheless, his daughters Judith the dual legacy is happily summed up in her own words. I have had the best of two worlds and have enjoyed the freedom given to few of my acquaintances, male and female. The legacy, that kind of contradicts what she said in her diary.
Yeah, right, I think it's
Yeah,
an adult.
but now she's a much more
Yes,
mature
right,
person
right.
to realize what,
Right,
What really transpired.
yeah.
The legacy Kaplan bequeathed to Jewish women in general is summarized in the paragraph that introduces this chapter on the status of the women in Jewish law, in the future of the American Jew. And that says a 1948 book, right?
48, yeah, we said, yeah.
Few aspects of Jewish thought and life illustrate so strikingly the need of reconstructing Jewish law as the traditional status of the Jewish woman. In Jewish tradition, her status is unquestionably that of inferiority to the man. If the Jewish woman is to contribute her share to the regeneration of the Jewish life, and if in turn Jewish life is to bring out the powers for good that are in her, this status must be changed. She must attain in Jewish law and practice a position of religious, civic, and judicial equality with the man. And this attainment must come about through her own efforts and initiative. Whatever liberal-minded man may do in her behalf is bound to remain but a futile and meaningless gesture. The Jewish woman must demand equality due her as a right to which she is duly entitled, fully entitled. That right is conceded to her in other civilizations where she is treated as a full-fledged person. There is no reason why the Jewish civilization should persist in treating her in this way and in this day and age as though she were an inferior type of human being. But you know, this downgrading of women in Jewish life happened in medieval times. It was not this way before the destruction of the first temple.
You mean in terms of the
way
biblical?
before
In
medieval.
the biblical times, women were treated much more as equal.
Yes.
There were women judges, there were women prophets, there were women leaders, they were involved, they were sung off as heroes, and only after the exile, and I would say most likely it was in Europe, medieval Europe, that it happened.
Were there women priests? I never heard of them.
No, there were no.
There only there were some exceptions. I think the women judges and so on, with the very few exceptions that are called out, I don't think it was normal
Well,
in biblical times.
well, if you consider the time that in history, in general, women were not considered to be anything, except Cleopatra.
Chattel.
They were chattel, right? They were property of the man. And yet,
The good old.
in Jewish early history, if it's 1 or 2 of 10, it's a lot compared to others.
Right, well, I think,
Well, what other civilizations did any better during the period we're talking about, pre-modern era?
What other civilization did better?
With regard to the position of women. I mean, in China, they had their feet bound,
There were.
Yeah, there weren't any.
right.
They were property and decoration,
It's true.
and a vehicle for propagating the family, the name,
I mean, I think,
and to work in the fields,
and
and to cook.
right, and there were the exceptions that you mentioned in terms of, like Rabbi Akiva and Rashi. I mean, among the rabbinic, the people who established rabbinic Judaism, those laws are, women are not, not equal or on the same level as men. And again, in some respects, some of the laws that the rabbis created were progressive in their own context, even though to us now they seem like the ketubah and the men being the only ones who can initiate a divorce in the context of Hellenistic world. It was a progressive It was a progressive law. So the rabbinic Judaism definitely, and that's where, you know, the men were obligated to do, you know, all the rituals, and women were freed from most of the ritual obligations, ostensibly because their main obligation was caring for the children and taking care of the family, and, you know, that's, you know, the argument went that if you had ritual obligations, how could you possibly fulfill those other roles? So it does seem in some ways like moving from the biblical to the rabbinic, you know, in terms of the likelihood of a Jewish female leader emerging, there seems to be a little bit more possibility within the biblical than in the rabbinic period and through the medieval. Although there were certain but then you find things like in the Cairo Geniza, you know, in certain parts of the Middle East, where apparently I know that I remember being in rabbinical school and reading a letter from the Geniza that talked about a female synagogue president, you know, in like the 11th century.